Hey, how's it going? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the worst books that I read in the year of 2025. I thought it would be best to get the worst books out of the way before I follow up this video with my best books of the year. I know there's already a lot of negativity on the internet and I don't like to add to that negativity, but also when you read about 240 books in a year, you're bound to read a few that just really suck. And so these are the top 12 worst books that I've read this year. You know, I actually had such a great reading year though this year that I actually kind of struggled to put together this list of 12. I think out of the 12, I had 6 books that I gave 1 star that were like definite worst books that I read this year. But then I had another 6 books that like these were like 2-star reads. Like they weren't the worst, but they were definitely disappointing. Also, just wanted to add a disclaimer like I do every single year. If you are an author of this book, I'm so sorry. This video is not for you. It's nothing personal. These books just didn't work for me, but I'm sure they'll work for somebody else. And also, if you read these books and you enjoyed them, this video is not meant to like make fun of you. It's not meant to yuck your yum. If you enjoyed these books, then I'm so happy for you. I'm just here to speak my truth because I suffered through these books this year. So let's just go ahead and jump right into my list. We're gonna be working our way from like the least offensive all the way up to like my number 1 worst book of this entire year. So coming in at number 12, we have Don't Let Him In by Lisa Jewell. You know how heartbreaking it is for me to have a Lisa Jewell book on this list? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong because I don't actually know, but I don't think I've ever had Lisa Jewell on my worst books of the year list ever, because this is an author that I really love and I'm always gravitating towards picking up her new thrillers, but this one in particular just really did not work for me for so many reasons. And I think it's because this is a thriller where like I just expected so much more to be happening in this story. Like literally the only thing that's going on in this story is like this guy is treating this woman like shit. This guy is lying to his wife. This guy is lying to these different women. And you're following multiple different perspectives, but I feel like it's very, very obvious like what's happening in this book. I just wish there were more layers to like the mystery in this. I'm pretty sure this one is like over 400 pages. And if it's gonna be this long, I'm gonna need more to the story than just like a man treats women like shit for 400 pages. Like I don't want to read that. I don't enjoy reading that. I was expecting this book to have some kind of like plot twist or like surprising moment in the second half, but like no, there was nothing. I just kind of felt like I wasted my time after reading this one, which is never the feeling that I want to have when I'm reading a Lisa Jewell. The next one coming in at number 11 is actually going to be We Love You Bunny by Mona Awad. Oh god, I know, I'm sorry. It pains me to have this one on my list as well because this book is actually the sequel and the prequel of the book Bunny by Mona Awad, which is a fantastic book. I feel like Bunny is one of those horror books that's going to be talked about for years, you know, like it just has that timeless quality to it. And I feel like Mona Awad desperately wanted to recreate that magic with We Love You Bunny, but this book was so obnoxious, it was so long, and it just completely over-explained so many things that I was like, I don't need all this explanation, you know, because I do think what makes Bunny so great is the ambiguity, like the not knowing, whereas like this book just doesn't really leave much room for that and it just over-explains everything ever. And I'm also putting this book on my list because of the audiobook specifically. If you've read this audiobook, then you probably understand where I'm coming from, but like this is one of the most annoying audiobooks I've ever listened to in my life, you know, because this audiobook is actually narrated by the bunnies, you know, like the girls, and we get a few different perspectives in We Love You Bunny, and it's like the narrators' voices kept getting more and more annoying with the different perspectives we were getting. Like I swear some of these girls were giving Mickey Mouse voice. That is not even an exaggeration for how they sounded. Her voice was just so shrill and she sounded like a little mouse and I could not stand it. So that was a huge reason for why this book ended up on my worst of the year list, because this book was actually giving me a headache while I was listening to it. The next one coming in at number 10 is going to be The Honey Crisp Orchard Inn. I don't think this book was terrible necessarily, but the main character was pissing me off in this one because we're following this girl who's like moving back to the small town where she was raised and she's gonna be helping out her parents, and it is a romance book about how she's like reconnecting with this guy from her small town. The romance in this book was fine, it just wasn't very well written in my opinion. Like it was just so basic, so generic. But the reason why this book is ending up on my list is because this protagonist was annoying as fuck, because I don't know how many times in this book she mentions dementia as like a joke. I mean, like she'll be like talking to her parents and they'll be like, oh, like I don't remember that thing, and she'll be like, oh my god, my parents are so forgetful, do they have dementia? But she says it in like a jokey, like trying to be quirky way. It's not even an exaggeration when I say that in the first 45 pages I think she brings up dementia at least 7 times, and that's when I stopped keeping count because I was like, this is ridiculous. It just felt very insensitive and very weird to be making these jokes about dementia when dementia is such a serious illness. And it wasn't just the comments about her parents with dementia, it was also like about herself. In like the middle of a sex scene, she'd be like, oh my god, I hope I never forget this if I ever get dementia one day. Like, dude, what are you talking about? And even at the end of the book, like one of the last lines in the book is supposed to be all sweet, like, well, if I ever get dementia, I don't think I'll ever forget this moment, or something stupid like that. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why do you you keep talking about dementia like this? And how did this book get published with all of these mentions in it? It was just so bizarre and so weird, and I did not like that at all. Okay, coming in at number 9 on my list is going to be The Crash by Frida McFadden. And if you were wondering, no, this is not the only Frida McFadden that is on this list, because I, like an idiot, I read 2 Frida McFadden books this year. But The Crash was slightly less offensive than the other one that I read. The Crash was just frustrating to read because the main character that you're following in this book, I feel like she was so dumb. Okay, because at the start of this book, she's 8 months pregnant, and then she decides to take this road trip to go and see her brother when it's like snowing outside, like snowing so badly that it's basically a blizzard. And of course, she crashes the car, gets into a wreck, and then there's this guy who like finds her in the snow and he's like, hey, I'm gonna go and take you back to the cabin where me and my wife live because all the roads are closed and we can't get to the hospital. Oh no. And then throughout the book, she's like trying to figure out, is this couple like actually as nice as they say they are, or are they up to something more sinister? And this book was like a copy and paste wannabe Misery by Stephen King. And the worst part was that it's nowhere near as good as Misery. It was actually so frustrating though to read this book because I feel like so many of the scenes get so repetitive. It's like you're reading the same scene over and over and over and over again. And you are getting multiple perspectives in this book, and I feel like that just made it worse because then like you're reading the same scenes over again from somebody else's perspective. It was just obnoxious. And then the ending was so predictable. I was like, there was nothing shocking for me about this ending. Okay, and now we are getting into the 1-star territory. I guess I did have a few more 1 stars than I originally thought, because one of the books I gave 1 star this year was Space Vampire by Ruby Dixon. This book was less than 100 pages long, and yet it still managed to piss me off because like, what even is the plot of this book? Like, I don't even know what to tell you. Why did I think I would like this? I don't know. I was like, vampires in space? Like, yeah, cool. Turns out it's not cool. This book is basically just like a smutty book of this girl waking up on a spaceship and finding out that she's alone with a vampire on a spaceship. And then she's like, oh my god, they think you're a monster, but you're just misunderstood. And then it's just like smut for like 90 pages. And like, that's fine, but like the smut wasn't even written well. It was just so stupid. You know, Ruby Dixon is the same author as the Ice Planet Barbarian series, which I actually read the first book of, and I had fun reading that one. Like, I didn't think it was that ridiculous, but like this just felt next level ridiculous, and like the main character was so obnoxious. Another book that I gave 1 star this year was actually 12 Nights at Rotterhouse. Oh my god, this was such a bummer because this is a horror book that has been on my TBR for years now. Like, it's been a book that I've been so curious about for a long time. I finally read it this year during Winterween back in January, and god, this book was so frustrating because you're following this protagonist who's a writer, right? And he's going to be going to this house called Rotterhouse, and he has this whole mission. Like, he wants to stay 12 nights at Rotterhouse and like write this book about the paranormal activity going on in the house. But the only problem is that he doesn't actually believe in ghosts, or like he doesn't believe in anything paranormal himself. So he takes his friend with him who does believe in stuff like that because he's like, I want to get another perspective and I want to understand why you believe. And it was just like so pretentious and so condescending. I feel like so much of this book is just him explaining different horror tropes to the reader over and over and over again. And like, when I tell you the majority of this book was so incredibly dull and so boring, like nothing happened. It'll be like, there'll be one scene that'll have like an intriguing moment or like something kind of creepy. Then as soon as that scene's over, we get like another 50 pages worth of boring shit that doesn't matter, and the main character being so pretentious to the reader. And I was waiting because I was like, okay, like maybe there's gonna be something thrilling happening at the end of this book, you know, because he originally wanted to stay there for 13 nights. And then you know that the book is called 12 Nights at Rotterhouse. So I was like, oh my god, like what's gonna happen on this last night? Like he's gonna have to leave early because of something crazy. But like, no, it wasn't crazy. It was so anticlimactic, like nothing even happened at the end. So I felt like I completely wasted my time. I gave this 1 star. I really didn't like this one. Another book that I gave 1 star to this year is a thriller called Parents' Weekend. Oh my god, this book was so frustrating. Mostly because there are a million perspectives in this book. Like, I am not even kidding. We get so many point of views, and like for what? Because in this story, we're following a group of like college students who all go missing during Parents' Weekend. At least I think that's what the premise is. Like, dude, I don't even know. I read this book back in the summer and like I already don't remember. But we have like 5 different college students and all of them go missing. But we don't actually follow from the 5 college students. From what I remember, we follow each one of their family members. When I tell you, we are following several people in the family, and like you have to keep track of who their parents are, their siblings, their friends, like for each one of the 5 students. So at the end of the day, you have a list of like maybe 30 plus characters that you're trying to keep track of, which is just ridiculous. Like, it's too many. But then something that I also really didn't like about this one is that this book acts as if it's a standalone book, but then when you're reading it, you start to find out that this character who plays a detective in this book, she's actually a detective in some of the author's previous other books. So it's almost written in a way as if you should know some of her story already because the author just expects you to have read his other books, and I was like, what? Like, who the fuck is this? I was not able to follow that easily because I didn't know who this character was. Not only that, but like there were some moments of dialogue in this book, like the way that the characters would speak to each other. I was like, this is so stupid. Like, people don't talk like this. It's like the author was like trying to imagine what like a quirky college student would sound like, and I was like, this feels so wrong. I also think the plot twist at the end of this book, it was very questionable. Like, it just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. I was like, why are we doing this? Like, out of all the things that you could have done at the end of this book, like, this is the plot twist you decided to go with. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I could get behind that. I ended up giving it 1 star because I could not find one thing that I enjoyed about this one. Okay, getting into my top 5 worst books that I read this year. Coming in at number 5 is going to be Kill Your Darlings by Peter Swanson. And can I just say, it actually breaks my heart to have Peter Swanson on any worst books of the year list because Peter Swanson is an author that I do really love. I feel like Peter Swanson might be the most like hit or miss author that I've ever had in my life because he's like one of the only authors that I've given several 5 stars and several 1 stars. Like, I don't understand. Sometimes there's like a really big disconnect. But Kill Your Darlings was like the biggest waste of time, I think, for the entire year because what the fuck was this book? So the whole thing with this book is that it's trying to be kind of like Memento, where like it's a thriller told in reverse. And like in theory, that sounds really cool because like the very first chapter that you're reading in this book is about this couple and you're seeing like how things have gone wrong in their marriage, and then there's this like very intense incident that happens between them right at the start. But that's like the end of their story, and then the next chapter you're reading like a year before the events, and then the next chapter it's like 3 years before that, and then by the final chapter of this book it's going all the way back to like their childhoods and stuff. But the weird thing about this book is that I'm like, why the fuck would I care? I already know their fate. Like, I already know what happens to them because the first chapter is like the last thing that ever happens to them, and like the first chapter of this book was really the only like thrilling part of the story for me. So then once you're done with the first chapter, it's like, okay, then what the fuck is the point of reading the next like 200 pages? With the final chapter of this book being like the first part of their story, like I can see what Peter Swanson was trying to do. Like, I think in theory, sure, maybe it's a cool concept, but oh my god, maybe this could have been like 100 pages less because there were so many filler moments. Like, say for example, in some of the future chapters, like we know that these characters grew up to be like teachers or writers or whatever the fuck. And then later on, when you're getting towards the end, you're reading about when they were like younger and they were still trying to figure out what they wanted to do with their lives. And they're like, oh, maybe I want to be a teacher or maybe I want to be a writer. And you're like, bitch, we already know that you went on to become a writer. So like, what is the point of reading all of these filler scenes? Oh my god, this book just really frustrated me. And I was pissed by the ending because I thought the ending would at least be like some kind of major twist reveal. And I think that's what Peter Swanson wanted me to feel with that final chapter. But I was just so frustrated that I was like, I don't fucking care anymore. Oh, sorry, I'm getting heated all over again talking about this one. Okay, and then coming in at number 4 is going to be this book called My Name Isn't Paul. Deeply hurts me because this is like one of my favorite book covers of the entire year. I think it's so stunning. And the way that this novel is described as like a cosmic horror novella, I was like, oh, okay, like this is really gonna be my shit. Like, I'm gonna love this. And I was so wrong. Like, I hated this book so much. Like, I don't think there's anything positive that I can even say about it. The reason why I was really excited for this book too is because it involves doppelgangers, which like, if you know me and my reading taste, like that is something that I absolutely love. Like, I eat that shit up. I love books about doppelgangers. And so I was really excited to check out this one, but like, oh my god, the writing in this book was so bad. It really, really did not work for me. Like, nothing about this writing style worked for me. Most of the time I was either like cringing or I was like, what the fuck did they just say? Or I was like, what? And the fact that this is a novella, but it feels like it took me fucking forever to finish this book because so much of this book is about these like doppelganger things talking to each other. It was almost like the author was like trying to have these creatures have some kind of like alien lingo with each other that just felt so cheesy and so stupid to me. And like the amount of times that I had to read the phrase like, I'm a bug, I'm a fucking bug. It was ridiculous. It was so dumb. It was not for me. Coming in at number 3 is going to be We All Rot Eventually by Mia Ballard. I know, I do apologize because it seems like a lot of people are really loving this one. This one is a horror novella and we're following this character who is like one of my least favorite characters that I've read this whole year. It's this girl named Alexa or Alexis, and she's becoming an actress in Los Angeles, and I believe this one's taking place in the early 2000s. But like, this book felt like the most random, what the fuck am I even reading right now type of story. For me, it felt like this author was trying so hard to write one of those like, good for her, like a woman becoming unhinged and just doing violent things. But the violence in this book felt so incredibly random to me. Like, what was the point? I do tend to enjoy enjoy books that are about like female rage or like women being mistreated and then kind of like getting revenge against the people who have wronged them. Like I like those kinds of storylines. But in this particular case, it was like the author was like trying to write this like unhinged woman, and there was just no reason for any of the violence, and like it didn't make any sense. And like, not that there has to be a reason. I'm not saying there needs to be a reason, because I know like sometimes violence, it just happens, but it all just felt so random and so disconnected. And like reading this, I just had no idea how I was supposed to feel. I was like, am I supposed to be rooting for her? There was something about the writing in this one that really just did not work for me. Like it was like the author was trying so hard, so desperately to write a character who was so like quirky, not like the other girls. Like, I'm just violent and my violence cannot be explained. I couldn't stand it personally, and I just don't know if this author's for me. This is the only book that I've read from her so far, so we're not starting off very strong with Mia Ballard. Okay, and then coming in at number 2 is going to be this book called 8114. This is another horror book that I read earlier this year, and I have deep regrets, okay? Like, I really wanted to read this one because I think the cover is so cool. The cover is so scary. Like, what the fuck is even happening on this cover? And why is his leg like kind of turned in like that? And why does it look like a monster and not a human? I have so many questions. So I was really curious to read this one, and I thought it would be really great, but I just really did not like this one for a few different reasons. I mean, the main reason why I couldn't really stand this book was because the main guy, the main protagonist, oh my god, he was so annoying. And basically he's this guy with a podcast, so like that's your first, you know, red flag right there. At the start of this book, he has this like podcast, okay? It's like a true crime podcast where he's talking about one of his friends that like went missing when he was a kid, and he's like, oh my god, what happened to this guy's name? Like, my friend, when he was a kid, he went missing. And then at the start of this book, his friend, you know, I think it's this guy Jake or something, he reaches out to him and he's like, yo, me and my mom are on the run from my abusive father and we're actually fine, but like, can you stop with this podcast? Like, you're putting us in danger. And then our main character dude is like, oh shit, like, my bad, didn't know, But then what's so frustrating, like, as if that's not like obnoxious enough that like he put his friend in danger like that, this book is about how he's going back to the small town where he grew up because something weird is going on in the town, and the house he grew up in is this 8114 house, and like there's been a lot of suspicious things with this house, like people think it's haunted, and he's coming back to the town because one of his friends has taken his own life. And so of course, like, what does this guy decide to do? He starts a new podcast about his other friend. I'm like, dude, what is it with this guy and the freaking podcast, man? So I really was not a fan of this main character. Like, he's mainly the reason why this book is ending up on my worst of the year list, because I could not stand him. I really wasn't a fan of the writing in this book in general. I feel like there was so much potential in some of these scenes to be done in a really creepy way, but like it just never went anywhere. So it was really such a bummer, you know. I keep getting deceived by these beautiful horror covers that I'm like, oh my god, like I highly anticipate them in my head because the cover is stunning, and I really need to stop doing that. Okay, and now we have made it to my number 1 least favorite book that I've read this year, and that has got to be The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. Here she is once again. I know you're thinking, why would you read 2 Frida McFaddens in 1 year? I actually read this one back in January. Like, this was one of the first books that I read this year when I was doing the video of like reading Goodreads popular books from 2024. And you know, Frida McFadden is just very popular with the thriller readers for some reason. I don't get it. I know that people say Frida McFadden's books are like easy to digest and like easy to read and like they're popcorn books, which I think, you know, that's great. But I also think the bar is just so fucking low for thrillers these days. And I get wanting to have like a fun popcorn read, but I'm like, Frida McFadden's books are just so frustrating to read because the protagonists are just so stupid. And like, this is a prime example of like, this girl is just so dumb. And she feels so unrealistic to me because I'm like, there is no way a woman would react this way to certain things. Like, there's just no way. I also think this one has got to be like the most frustrating book that I've read this year because of the plot twist at the end of the book. Like, it just felt so unrealistic and like so stupid. There was also a line in this book about scrunchies. Like, the way that this character tries to like rationalize things, it was just so ridiculous. Like, who thinks that way? I have read a few different Frida McFaddens at this point in time, and I think The Boyfriend is by far like the most obnoxious, ridiculous shit that I've ever read. Like, this one actually made me mad. Like, this one feels like it's an insult to women and women's intelligence. I'm just really hoping that Frida McFadden can like quit it with the whole like publishing 3 thrillers a year type of thing, because clearly the quality is not there. And I get people wanting to have like a simple, easy thriller to just like lose themselves in, but I really think in 2025, like, we could be doing better, and there are so many better thriller writers out there. So it's just been really disappointing to see books like this absolute slop, make it into like the best thrillers of the year awards all the time. Goodreads recently posted like the most popular thrillers of the year, like of 2025, and the way that Frida McFadden took up so many of the top places, it's just so disappointing. I'm like, is anybody reading anything else? I just don't see the hype with Frida McFadden. If you like Frida McFadden, I'm happy for you, but I just really think that there are such better thriller writers out there. So yeah, those are my 12 worst books of the year of 2025. I would love to know your thoughts on any of these books. Like, did any of these books also make your worst books of the year list? And I would also love to know, like, what were your top 3 maybe like worst books that you read in 2025? Do you have a list? Because I want to know. Definitely leave me a comment down below and let me know your thoughts, and thank you so much for watching. As always, like I said, next video should be my best books of 2025, which is also very exciting for me to work on. I love doing these end of the year videos and I hope that you enjoy watching them. And thanks so much for being here. I'll see you next time. Bye!